Right. Buenos dias, grand rising, everyone. I hope you're all having a lovely morning. My name is Liliana Barrera, and as a policy advocate for Kids Forward, I have the great pleasure of welcoming you to our webinar, Beyond Borders, exploring the diversity of immigrants and refugees in Wisconsin. Before we get started, we would like to acknowledge the ancestral land of the Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Potawatomi, and Sioux nations, among others. We honor and respect the enduring relationships that Indigenous people have maintained with this land for thousands of years and recognize their contributions to the past, present, and future of Wisconsin. Today's event is rooted in the belief that immigrants and refugee families deserve the respect and human dignity. Therefore, we also acknowledge the labor and contributions of immigrant workers across Wisconsin, from the farmers tending the fields, to the factory workers crafting goods, from the educators shaping young minds, to the healthcare workers caring for our communities, to the folks working in the service and hospitality business. We recognize the vital role that labor plays in maintaining our state's economy, culture, and future. Therefore, we thank all workers for their contributions. For folks who are not familiar with Kids Forward, we are an anti-racist policy center committed to the well-being of children and families living in Wisconsin, especially Black, Brown, Indigenous, immigrant, and rural children. In a time where children are being bombed and exploited, we publicly condemn any form of violence committed to children around the world and in this state. For all the children who have been exposed to violence, let us hold a moment of silence and remember one of the reasons that brings us to this webinar today. This work would be impossible for Kids Forward to do alone, so we are grateful for the partnerships we have formed and hope to continue forming. Now, we will hear from my colleague Amanda Martinez for more context on today's webinar.
Thank you, Liliana, for that powerful introduction. Welcome, everyone. Buenos dias. My name is Amanda Martinez. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a policy analyst here at Kids Forward. In going over today's agenda on the next slide, you all just heard an introduction from Liliana. Next, I will be sharing some context and data. After that, we will move into our panel discussion, which will be moderated by Cartesia Weaver. And in closing, we will have a few words from our Executive Director, Michelle Mackey. In the background, there is also some tech support and chat support happening from my colleagues, Emily and William. And I want to give a big shout out to the Kids Forward team for making this possible. And moving into some housekeeping items, we do ask all attendees to please have your cameras off and your mics muted. You are also welcome to begin introducing yourself in the chat. During our Q&A portion of the panel discussion, we will be using the chat feature to submit questions as well. And lastly, we are going to be recording today's session. And a big thank you to everyone who has taken some time out of their Saturday to join us today. I will now get us started by sharing some history and data about immigrant and refugee communities in Wisconsin in order to ground our panel discussion today. Starting off with some history, Wisconsin has been shaped by various waves of newcomers seeking refuge, opportunity, and a place to call home. Early European settlers established farming communities. Hmong refugees escaped the aftermath of the Vietnam War, and the Bracero program brought many migrant workers from Latino America to our state. There are many other waves of immigration, and each one has left a historical mark on our state's identity. For this reason, we must acknowledge the diversity of these populations. According to the 2022 American Community Survey, of the 5.9 million people living in Wisconsin, about 295,000 are immigrants, which is roughly about 5% of the total population. As you can see in the data chart on the slide, Wisconsin's refugees and immigrants are diverse and come from various places in the world. 40% of immigrants in Wisconsin were born in Latino America, 36% of immigrants were born in Asia, 16% of immigrants were born in Europe, and 6% of immigrants in Wisconsin were born in Africa. The data that is represented here today includes Wisconsin immigrants who are both U.S. citizens and also non-citizens. And behind all of these statistics lie individual narratives of resilience and aspirations that shape the immigrant experience. As we dig a little deeper, the map on the next slide shows where Wisconsin immigrants make their homes in the counties throughout our state. As you can see, the darker blue counties have higher populations of immigrant communities. Many urban counties like Milwaukee, Dane, and Kenosha have a large share of immigrants as a percent of their total population. There are also some other counties like Walworth, St. Croix, Brown, and Trempealeau that are also home to a large share of immigrants, some of which are communities for farm workers in our state. Although the data that we presented today captures where immigrants are coming from and where they are living in Wisconsin, this data does not capture the stories of resilience that exist. Today, we acknowledge that the stories of Wisconsin immigrant and refugees cannot be captured by one single narrative. People from all over the world have made Wisconsin their home, and individuals who are immigrants may include foreign-born citizens, non-citizens, permanent residents, DACA recipients, undocumented children and families, refugees, and asylees. Embracing immigrants in Wisconsin is essential towards strengthening our community. Today, we are so excited to introduce 3 panelists who share a unique but very critical role in supporting the lives of immigrant and refugee children and families across our state. Muchas gracias. Thank you for listening. I am now happy to hand it over to my colleague, Garticia Weaver, Kids Forward Senior Policy Analyst, who will moderate our panel discussion today.
Thank you so much, Amanda, and thank you again to the Kids Forward team for asking me to moderate this panel today. I am elated to be moderating today and to be able to get a chance to talk to 3 really dynamic leaders within the Wisconsin immigrant community. As the granddaughter of an immigrant, this topic is near and dear to my heart, and I'm excited to introduce our 3 panelists today. So first we have Fabiola Hamdan. She is a bilingual, bicultural senior social worker with Dane County Department of Human Services. She is the first immigration affairs supervisor in the county. She has a Master of Science in Social Work from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. An immigrant from Bolivia, she is a strong advocate for the immigrant community in Dane County. Fabiola provides outreach and resources to immigrant and refugee communities in Dane County in order to support integration through coordination of county services. Ms. Hamdan was honored with numerous awards recognizing her for her excellent community service and outstanding work. But most recently, Fabiola was awarded the School of Social Work Distinguished Field Supervisor Award, the Si Se Puede 2017, the Most Powerful Latinos in Wisconsin Award, and the 2020 United Way Women United Philanthropy Award. Fabiola, thank you so much for being here with us today. Secondly, we have Lord Xiong. He serves as the Multicultural Outreach Coordinator at the Oshkosh Area School District. Drawing from his experiences as a second-generation Hmong American and a former student with the school district, Lord considers it to be a privilege to support students with refugee backgrounds. With the background in nonprofit management, Lord integrates his professional and personal experiences to create a welcoming environment for his students with refugee backgrounds and their families. He is committed to fostering a supportive and welcoming environment through advocacy and building meaningful connections with the community. Lord, thank you so much for being here. And last but certainly not least, we have Esther Ama S. Ptak, a proud immigrant from Ghana. Ama works as a community outreach coordinator for the African Center of Community Development in Madison, Wisconsin. She is a graduate of UW-Madison's Professional French Master's Program, and as a coordinator, she leads strategic program development and community engagement to serve the needs of African immigrant community and low-income populations in her home of Dane County. Ama loves spending time with her family and participating in community events. Ama, thank you for being here as well. And before we jump into our panelist questions, I just want to encourage our panelists to engage in a rich dialogue. I hope that today these questions just simply serve as a frame for our conversation, but that we're able to have a meaningful and rich conversation about the experiences of immigrant and refugee populations in Wisconsin. And so without further ado, let's get started. And so our first question today is, what inspired you to start or join your immigrant and refugee-based organization? And I'll have Fabiola kick us off.
Buenos dias. Good morning. Thank you so much for the invitation, and thanks to all of you that are participating in this webinar. It's really an honor for me to be here. So I was thinking about this question, and I think my trajectory as an immigrant probably had to do a lot with what I'm doing today. I arrived to this country from La Paz, Bolivia. So if there are any Bolivians out there, hello, about 37 years ago. And like many of the new immigrants, uncertain of my future, not speaking English, facing a lot of challenges. And also, as a family, we lived through a very, very painful experience because my mom undergo to a very difficult brain surgery on top of that. So yeah, the recovery was tough, always constant visits to the ER and really feeling very isolated. At that time, I didn't experience seeing any Latinos, for example, here in Dane County. So the adjustment was really tough. So things turned out around in my family when my mom recovered, and now she lives here in Madison along with my father. I have a brother and a sister. So, overcoming all these barriers and end up going, I was so fortunate to going to UW-Madison and get my degree in social work. And really, I think this passion that I always had to advocate for families in need, because we went through that path. And also, I think, 37 years ago, it's a lot of years, but I just, I remember that it took me about 9 years to become a US citizen, like the trajectory also was really eye-opening for us. So I think these are some of the things that really get me to do what I work. I don't know if you want me to go and talk a little bit about what the Office of Immigration Affairs is, or should we wait for that?
We'll get to that after this question, but
right.
You're ahead of us. Awesome. Would either of our other panelists like to answer that question? What inspired you to join your immigrant and refugee-based organization?
I could go next. My inspiration to be in the line of work that I do to provide support to refugee and immigrant families came from my own family's experience as refugees and also my personal experience as a second-generation Hmong American. My parents came as refugees from Laos or from Thailand in the late 1970s. They spent about 3 years in the refugee camps before they were resettled to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And then after a year or so in Philadelphia, they eventually moved to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, just because of all the as refugees in in the projects in Philadelphia, getting bullied, getting uh, just it wasn't a good environment for them. So they came to Wisconsin, and that's where I was born and raised in Oshkosh. But then also being in the school system in Oshkosh Area School District and knowing the gaps that I experienced as a second generation, but also with my local, fellow students that were among refugees that were coming in and what we experienced, and with all the other new refugees that we are um, that are arriving to Oshkosh, how are we able to, bridge those gaps that I experienced and my fellow peers experienced back when we were in school, and what are things that we could create for them to be successful? And so that's a lot of where my inspiration comes from.
Thanks, Laura. Ma, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, I came to Madison as a student. I came to do my master's program, and when I came, I got very good people to support me, but then I yearned for community. Before I came in my home country, Ghana, I moved to different sub-Saharan countries just to work, and I always loved traveling. So when I came here, I saw that things were different and a lot of cultural shocks. And being in UW-Madison campus, sometimes the campus is big, but you can feel isolated. So I went out of my way to look out for, the Ghana Association of Madison, the African Association, and I was fortunate enough to meet very good people from the community who provided the support. They helped me with my integration, and I realized that along the years, there are so many people who come in who may not necessarily come through the university, but they maybe economic migrants, refugees coming in from other states or from different continents, but African immigrants, and they are struggling. They face a lot of barriers, financially, linguistically. Even socially, there are so many things, challenges people are facing. And I first started as an intern at the African Center. I worked there for a couple of months, and I realized that, this is a good place to be able to support our community members, for them to integrate better, for them to get the resources they need to be able to face the challenges, because they're going to come, but they should be able to gradually overcome the barriers.
Thank you so much. I'm hearing a few things here. I'm hearing about adjustments, difficulties adjusting to the community, different barriers that you all are facing, whether that be citizenship, whether that be navigating resources, and really that you all were in search of community, and that's what inspired you to join your organizations. And so as we move on to our next question, can you all just remind our group, like, what organization are you a part of? And what specific services or supports does this organization to provide to communities in Wisconsin? And anyone can jump in.
Okay, go ahead. The agency that I work with is the Department of Human Services, and so I created the Immigration Affairs Unit within the department. Prior to this, I did community social work for 18 years with a program called Joining Forces for Families in the Darbo neighborhood. And that really gave me a solid base to understand what was going on in the ground with the communities and all the needs and all the interactions that I had in my community office. So I did that for 18 years. And then as the immigrant community was growing in Dane County and in Madison specifically, many agencies start to see the need of getting services out there, not only to the Latinx community, but other communities like you were mentioning. People from Africa were coming. We have our in the area that I was at, our Hmong residents, so on and so forth. So then also in the previous administration, there was this negativeness about the immigrant community, especially attacks on the undocumented previous administration and the DACA. So DACA is still in limbo right now. So many of these things were happening at the same time, and then County Human Services started seeing mixed status families living together, and then coming for services. And a lot of these things were immigration. If I'm not have documentation, how can I access to budget care? How can I access this and all of that? So then County Executive Parisi decided, and county supervisors decided to create a position that will deal with immigration stuff. And sure enough, I took the position. However, I did not, I just had my lived on experience as an immigrant. So I took the position as the immigration affairs specialist. Yay. I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to start helping the immigrant families that need of services. Then in 2018, I took the position in 2017. In 2018, we have the ICE raid. I don't know if you guys remember. 2018, October 2nd, I think. So that really was a huge eye-opening for us because we were not ready. ICE came unannounced and did not even contacted our law enforcement that they were coming. So we had 4 days of terror. 20 people were detained from Dane County and 83 from Wisconsin. And the detainees were untargeted. And so for those of you that were here, it was a terror 4 days that they were here. People were not showing up to work. Undocumented people, not going to work. Parents were keeping kids from the school. It was just, and in a press conference, my phone number from my office. So I just started as an immigration affairs specialist, was given out, and I had like over 500 different calls from people saying, okay, what are we gonna do? I'm afraid. Or businesses like, oh, all my staff didn't show up. What do I do? Or should we go to school yet? You get the point. So that was a really tragic thing that happened, and immediately, a group of us, united with the people that were the loved ones were detained. We tried to put resources. We tried to connect with immigration attorneys, so on and so forth. So I think that was an eye-opening. So that's when I decided that I needed to advocate for funding, because I didn't have a budget, for more people that do this job. And long story short, at the beginning, I was given only 30,000 a year budget and one social service specialist as an LTE. More advocacy happened, and always, sort of kind of with the support of management, the county supervisors, the county executive, and all of that, seeing the work that we were doing, or I was doing, it's very needed. So now I have 2 full-time social workers. We are hiring 1 social service specialist, always have some LTEs or students, and myself. So now we have created this unit in the Department of Human Services. What do? We're social workers. All of us are bilingual, bicultural, and with lived experience. So we do case management, obviously. We connect people with resources, immigration legal resources. We find attorneys, immigration attorneys. We try to connect with as many resources as we can. We coordinate transportation services with Dane Sanctuary Coalition for people that have immigration appointments in Milwaukee, Dane County, or Waukegan now. We assist with filing fees. We can, if you wanted to become a U.S. citizen, the fee is $725. I think it went up just this last Monday. when the fees went up. So we assist with filing fees, consultation with immigration attorneys. We also do a lot of contract outside with private psychologists or mental health providers to provide some services. Anything that we can do to assist the immigrants that come through our door. And right now, the influx of asylum seekers, but we have clients from almost all over the world, and just trying to connect, work with organizations, and really do this type of presentation, so we can have more people helping and joining this fight for justice.
Thank you, Fabiola, for your work and for sharing your experiences early on, and for creating space for immigrants in our state. Would anyone else like to jump in?
Yep, so at the Oshkosh Area School District, again, I get the privilege to serve as the ESOL, which stands for English for Speakers of Other Languages, as a multicultural outreach coordinator. And through that, I get the privilege of managing, refugee-related grants and overseeing programs funded by these grants to support our students with refugee backgrounds. So through the grants that we receive, we are able to provide support to new students and their families through our Refugee School Impact and Refugee Youth Mentor program. And within our Refugee School Impact program, we provide orientation to new families and their school-aged children, on transportation assistance, school supplies, in-school tutoring and mentoring, after-school programs, and summer programs, specifically geared towards our students with refugee background. And you probably hear me say the term students with refugee background just because they're not refugee students. Once they've come to the US, this is now their home. So now there are students with refugee backgrounds. And that's the term that we like to use just so they don't longer have that refugee term attached to them, saying that they're still looking for a refuge. They are home now. And so that's our Refugee School Impact program. Through our Refugee Youth Mentor program, we pair students with mentors who help them accomplish goals based on social and life skills, cultural exploration, engagement with peers, academic support, transition assistance, career development, health and wellness literacy, financial literacy, and civic engagement. And some of the things that we do through our Refugee Youth Mentor program is helping students get a driver's license, getting in their behind the wheel classes or driver's education classes, helping them look for jobs, college applications, transitioning between grades from 5th grade to middle school to high school. There's a variety of services that we provide through our Refugee Youth Mentor program, and that's also K through 12. And it's an awesome opportunity we get to provide for our students.
Thank you, Laura, for that grounding and for the work that you're doing with students.
Yeah, I will go next. So I work with the African Center, and we are a small organization, but with a very long history. The African Center was created out of the African Association of Madison, and I know a lot of people know about the African Association of Madison because of Africa Fest, the annual festival in Madison here. So the leaders in our community realized that there was a growing need for community members coming in. They need to access resources, find services, even just navigate school systems and so many things. So they decided to create the African Center for Community Development to be the organization that would have as a mission the promotion of the well-being of African immigrants here in Madison and Dane County through education, service, dialogue, and programming. So as part of what we do, we have 3 focus areas: economic development, community building, and community support. So through our community support, we partner with the City of Madison, and this partnership started at the beginning of COVID when the city realized that COVID was affecting a lot of immigrants, and especially in our community, African immigrants from the way we were raised, we don't usually go out to seek assistance because the idea is that you have to struggle to make it. So with this mentality, so many people were not going out, and those who were undocumented, sometimes we are undocumented, and people think that it's undocumented people are mostly from Latin America, but there are also undocumented people who are Africans. And this population wasn't going out because one, there was the fear that if they did, they'll be discovered by ICE and they would have to be deported. Their jobs, they lost their jobs because of COVID. They were dealing with family medical conditions. So many people had COVID and long COVID. And so with all these issues, the organization, that's the African Center, decided to work with the city to see how best we can support the community. And not only supporting African immigrants, but also the low-income population in Madison. And so we got involved in Dane Core rental assistance program, and we wanted to be out there to meet the community where they were at. So we went to different community centers and different libraries so that people would come in and we'll help them complete the application. Sometimes we have these great programs, but with very complex application process that end up isolating people or limiting access to people who need the assistance most. So we were able to help people navigate the process and get the funding they needed. And the program was great because it was providing rental assistance for 18 months back owed rent, social security deposit, and 3 months future rent. Unfortunately, the program closed, but we are still out there providing housing navigation services, helping African immigrants, other immigrant populations, and low-income populations to find housing. We all know that housing has been a huge challenge. And in addition to the scarcity of housing, there are so many barriers. There are people, especially undocumented immigrants, who do not have social security, who do not have credit, and who also do not have income because they don't have the funding to be able to afford rent. So there are layers of barriers, and we are out there trying to help people to be able to navigate the system and talking to property managers and landlords to see how they can accommodate members of our community and residents of Madison. We also help with application assistance. So in the libraries, my colleagues would be there and someone would be struggling to even create an email account. And these are some of the services they request from librarians, and librarians have, in addition to that, they have so many things to do. So we also try to help out with some of the technical assistance. And so that's part of our community support. And we also provide immigrant support through our undocumented immigrant support program. We were able to assist about 110 immigrants over the past year to access free bus passes, to also be able to access affordable healthcare. They were able to find ESL classes. We partnered with some attorneys for them to provide them free consultation and legal assistance because we were able to cover part of the legal fees. And we were happy to see that so many people who came through the program started their immigration process. Some have received their work permits, others too are in the process. We know that sometimes it takes a long time, but we are happy to see the progress in our community. And because of our presence, so many people are coming out of the shadows and sharing their challenges. We also, as part of our economic development focus area, we support our local businesses. We also provide financial literacy programs in partnership with other financial institutions. We also provide youth programs, especially during the summer. And just last winter, we wanted to send students from immigrant households to the state capital, because sometimes you see this pretty building, but not so many people have ever been in it. So many people think that they don't belong there. So we wanted to help the kids change the narrative and see that they can be part of the development process of our state. So thanks to Rep. Samba, he hosted us at the state capitol with the Africa Club students from East High School. So these are some of the things we've been doing, and we are always looking to partner with community organizations and public agencies to be able to support the communities around us.
Thank you so much, Amar, especially for bringing up the fact that the immigrant and refugee experience is not a monolith, and the reasons why some populations might be hesitant to access resources, and for your work to meet those communities where they are. How about, and some of you have already began to touch on this, what are some success stories or positive outcomes that your organizations have achieved in supporting immigrant and refugee communities in Wisconsin?
It's very hard I was thinking again about this question, like, what is success? Success to me will be something, and to all of us means different. But at the same time, we need to think about that, because if we don't, then, right, I mean, how are you going to evaluate your program? So I feel that as a unit, I mean, that's a success type of example, that we have the Immigration Affairs Office within the government. And I think, it's doable. And it happened naturally, without even planning, without even doing anything. So to me, that's a success. And then once I leave, retire, whatever, I want that organization, that unit, to grow more, and hopefully other counties, other cities start seeing that, so we can make it happen. As far as the clients we work with, as I said, right now we are 3 full-time, 2 social workers. I'm the supervisor for the entire county, and really we're drowning with a lot of referrals and a lot of need out there, that we are not really able to close the gap. The gap is still, widening enough, very open. So, but with all of that, I think, I was, as far as the individuals that we work with, we are seeing now how a little help from us can help them to get their U.S. citizenship, renew their work permit, renew their DACA permit, apply for different immigration status. And it's really the intention of us to connect them with an immigration attorney, which is expensive, and also walk them through that. And when people come to us, we already sort of, live that experience. So we don't need an explanation about what happened, or your trajectory. So I think those are the successes we are seeing right now. The other thing is that just last week, we worked with this woman from Nigeria, with the family. So the husband, he became a U.S. citizen. That was great. And now, he's petitioning for the wife. And then, so we were talking in a conversation, and she's like, oh, things, like, my husband is a citizen now. And do you know that he speaks 7 languages? I'm like, really? So where is he working? He works in a store, And I said, well, did he get the certificate or something? She said, yes. So immediately, we connected him with our Department of Human Services with the language access. So he's going to be doing that also. And, sometimes we don't see, especially service providers, oh, we're going to help, we're going to do basic needs, we're going to do this. But our office also is really, for us, very important to empower people to really make them, realize that, this immigrant community, it really enhances our workforce and what we do in this country. So lastly, because we do a lot of, we work with Centro Hispano and CELC and us to do the asylum orientations once a month. And then as social workers, we do intakes with the attendees. So, we find out that this kiddo needed some medical attention. We use our connections to do that. And we find out that he had a very delicate situation, life or death. And he needed, a bone marrow transplant and all of that. And then immediately, we're still working on it, but I know he will be having that service done. If we didn't do the orientations, if we didn't do the intake, if we didn't do all these initiatives that just come with our program, I don't think we could be able to, in this case, save a life, right? So it's just, a lot of, individual successes like that we have to check. But then also at the macro level, we need to also check that, offices like us, it's able, we can do it, and we can establish something like this.
Yeah, thank you, Fabiola, for bringing up this point about the micro and the macro level successes, and the question about what does success look like and how that might be relative. And shout out to 7 languages. Wow, that's amazing. Me and English and Spanish have been I mean English itself, but would anyone else like to jump in on that? This question about successes.
Yeah, in our Refugee Youth Mentor program, we've had, we work with specifically goals with our students, and by accomplishing those goals, I would consider that a success. And so we had a student that she's been in the US for less than 3 years, and she graduated high school, and she got enrolled and accepted into UW Oshkosh just and she's enrolled this current year. And so that was a big success for her to be the first one in her family to go to college. We've had our mentors work with students and families that just became naturalized citizens within the past year or two. And then we have just within the past 2 years, we worked with students, about 10 to 15 students that have got their driver's license. And that's huge because they're the first one in their families to get a driver's license, and that gives them transportation independence for themselves, but also for their families. Also helping out students getting jobs, getting involved in extracurricular activities, and just integrating into the community. Those are a lot of our successes, and just kind of great to meet with the students too, and just to see the joy in their faces, but also hear the struggles that they encounter as well. But it's just one step forward that we're proud to be a part of.
Thanks, Laura. College enrollment is such a big thing. And I remember getting a driver's license as a 16-year-old and being so happy and excited. So excited for your students reaching those milestones. How about you, Ama?
I agree with Fabiola that sometimes measuring success may be challenging, but success can not only be quantitative, but qualitative. And usually we look at the qualitative impact we make in people's lives, even if it's one person, given the limited financial resources available to organizations like ours. So I was thinking back and looking at the work we have done over the past few years, and there are some stories that stood out to me. I remember we worked with one blind or visually impaired client, and she was undocumented and was living in the shadows because of the fear of the family that they should be deported if she was found out. And she wasn't born blind. She became blind because of a surgery that went wrong when she was young. And then she had to join her family here and overstayed. And there wasn't any provision for a person like that, given their handicap, to be able to get, you know, immigration resources as quickly as possible. So through the program that we had, the mom reached out, and the challenge was getting money to pay the legal fees. And thankfully, we got some grant from the city of Madison, so we used that to cover that. And she had her court hearing in 2 weeks. We contacted an attorney. She worked with them, and within the next few weeks, she got her uh, work permit, she got a green card, and the family was overjoyed because now not only is she able to access resources here in the US, but she's been, I think, hired by one of the public agencies to work, and she's so happy. She's a very brilliant young lady, and just imagine that because of the legal fees, or her potential will not be realized due to that. And also there are so many people who come in, mostly people from Africa. They are either from Francophone countries or Anglophone countries, so they speak French or English as the official language. But from experience, there are some people who come in who speak neither of these international languages, and they speak African language, and they have to learn English. So they don't even know where to start from. And I'm glad that we are an organization that people feel is a home away from home for them. So they are like, okay, there's a new African in town. Where did they go to? They want to bring them to the African Center for us to connect them with resources. So that's just that the feeling that people have that we are there to provide the resources or to connect them to the resources is a success on its own for us. People getting their work permits and coming back to say, well, I got my work permit. Can you help me find a job? And we are helping people find jobs. And recently we helped someone get a job at UPS. He applied, next day he got it and sent me a message. He couldn't believe it. And I was happy. So, again, limited resources, but the impact we are making in the individual lives and in the lives of family members, something that's worth counting on. And we're hoping that, as we grow and we continue to work with other community organizations, we'll be able to assist more and more people reach the potential they want to.
Thanks, Amar, especially for pointing out the fact that, legal fees can sometimes be a barrier, and limit the potential of folks who want to work at UPS, and they have great benefits and stuff. And so, thank you for that triage work almost in the community, figuring out exactly what folks need and connecting them with resources. I also noticed we have a very rich a lot of questions in the chat. We are tracking those questions, and we'll get to those very, very soon. So if you have questions, please continue to ask those in the chat, and we'll grab them for our Q&A session at the end of our conversation. But let's keep going. I'm enjoying this conversation. Some of you began to talk about some of the current challenges and barriers that are being faced. And if each of you could quickly just mention some of those challenges or barriers, and any misconceptions that we might see within the state as in relation to those challenges or barriers.
So for the sake of time, I want to be very brief here because I think there's lots of challenges. We don't have an infrastructure to, for example, welcome the newcomers, a lot of the asylum seekers. So challenges with housing, basic needs, all of that. We are very lucky here in Dane County that we have many agencies. Even with that, it's really hard to provide services right away. And it was mentioned housing. I mean, I can go for 2 hours talking about our housing. I can go 2 hours about talking childcare, employment, all of that. I think it's very important that organizations come together. As I said, our job, we cannot do it alone. So with organizations and, for example, we used to have the collaborative with about 7 different nonprofit organizations at the beginning of my job, and I kind of saw something in the question. So, there was no budget, but we had to apply for the Vera Institute of Justice for $100,000 there, the city $100,000, the county, and all of that. So that was really a great idea. Sustaining, maintaining is a challenge because we have different organizations, right? So I think we need to sit outside of the box and then think about these different initiatives that we can do. Also, in our community, for example, I talk about our budget, 70,000. What's that? Almost nothing. But we had the hospitals that are donating. I didn't mention that. So UW Hospital did a donation, different churches donations and all of that. So it is not only the county budget, but we have other assistance. And I think it is challenging right now. Immigration is a political subject, and everybody's using that the way they want to. But I think it is challenging for us to really, when we talk about immigration, talk in a way that that is helping really people, but not just using it for their political campaigns.
For sure.
Yeah, I have a long list of challenges and barriers. Just to start with access to education, a lot of the students that we're receiving, some of them are older, like 16, 17, 18, and they still are eligible to, especially the 18 years that are eligible to enroll in high school. A lot of times these students don't have transcripts that come with them. And so that's a barrier to, are they able to get enough credits and before they graduate at their max age, which is 21? How is that transition going to look like if they aren't able to from high school to go into like a GED or HSED program? We also have students that have special needs. They don't have documentation of if they were in special needs classes in the country where they came from. How do we provide them access to our special needs courses and support? Access to healthcare, health renewals. A lot of families, they get that support from the resettlement agency, but after a certain time, they have to do renewals. They don't, English is not their first language. They don't know how to read. They don't know how to read mail or open mail and the importance of that. And they're not getting their renewals in on time. We have students that are turning 18 and no longer are covered underneath Badger Care or Medicare or the health insurance that their parents have. A lot of the challenges that we have at the school district is transportation, especially during winter. We just had a student this past winter that wasn't prepared walking. We provide them with, winter jackets, boots and socks and clothing that they need, but they're not wearing them to walk to school. And one of the students had frostbite and didn't come to school for about 2 weeks. For students that want to be involved in extracurricular activities, city bus routes end at 6 to 7 p.m. And during the wintertime, if a student wants to be involved in those activities, they have to walk home at night during the wintertime where it's bitterly cold. And if they do get their driver's license, how are they going to purchase vehicles? Or if they do have a vehicle, how are they going to fix it? We also have challenges and barriers of personal hygiene, access and resource to hygiene products, laundromat location accessibility. Another big one is bowling. A lot of our students getting bowling at school and also at home. Communication, access to internet and phone services. If a student is at home and they need to access, the online programs in order to do their homework or things like that, do they have internet at home, and are they able to do that? A lot of times our parents, they're not able to walk with their students to school just because it might be a single parent household that has younger um, infant children at home that they have to care for. And then also safety, areas that they live in just based on housing. A lot of the time the housing community or the areas that they are, it's not the most welcoming and inviting. And then also a lot of parents struggle with the cultural norms especially when it comes to childcare or just treating their child, or how they discipline, and how in their culture it's not considered abuse, but in American culture it is considered child abuse. Some of the misconceptions that I've seen as among American, but also with my family and also with our um, refugee community that's here, is a lot of times people think English is an easy language to learn, which is not. English is definitely a hard language to learn. Um, Transportation, thinking that it's easy. They could just hop on a city bus or just walk to where they need to be. But when they work second shift and they take the city bus to work, how are they going to get back home? Um, a lot of times people think that when newcomers are coming in, the community that they're entering might think that, oh, they're stealing all of our resources. And that's why we need to preserve and kick them out of our community. But a lot of times those newcomers don't even know how to access those resources. And they're clueless how to do it unless someone is there to help refer them. Another misconception is that it was the family's choice to come to the US. I know for my parents, when they came to the US, they were given options to either go to, there's options for Australia, France, French Guiana, and then the US. And they were, and then they resettled to the US just because of family ties. And so those are some of the misconceptions that I think that people often see in the community that we experience.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah, I think Fabiola and Laura have summarized all the challenges that immigrants face and they cut across, regardless of where you are coming from. And I will add to it with a few anecdotes. So, and also there are true stories. I'm not going to mention the names, but I was recently talking to one of our community members. He speaks French and he's now learning English. So he told me that this past winter, there was a lot of snow and his car got hit. And when he called the police for them to come in. And when he called, he tried to explain the situation. What it was that he was on the road and in traffic and he was turning left. So the green light was on and the green arrow was on, which means that he had a right of way. And the oncoming car on the other side, so right opposite him. So it should be red and the person should stop. But the person was speeding, and because there was snow, the person, just came in and rammed into his car, and the car got completely spoiled. And he was even stuck in the seat. He had to be pulled out. But when the cop came and he was trying to explain, in French, arrow is flesh, in flesh. So he said the flesh was green. And the cop understood it because he was telling another colleague who speaks mostly English. And the colleague was like, was it flashing green? And he said the flesh was green. And so I had to go. So I thought about it and I said, okay, in the policeman's mind, he meant that the arrow was flashing. And so that's why he left, and then which makes the other person right. And this person was a white man, and he explained that when the policeman came, spoke with him, went to have a talk with the other driver, and he was told to call the ambulance. He was sent to the hospital, and then the policeman came and gave him a ticket for driving slowly. And he had to go and pay for the ticket, and his insurance has to pay for the other person's car. even though the other person giving his story, the other person was the one at fault. But just because he couldn't say the word arrow, the arrow was green, and kept using the French word, the flesh was green, he has to pay that. And I was thinking about it, and I said, the police, they have access to the language line. If this policeman took just a few minutes to call the language line and get a French translator on the phone to speak with this person, this immigrant would have received the justice he needed. But he never got that justice because the person didn't have the time. He just wanted to give him the ticket and go away. So that is one of the challenges people are facing, the language barrier. I know so many people, but recently I met one older community member who has been around for 2 decades, has been working really hard, but was never able to get his green card because he didn't even know that he had to attend an interview, and also because of language barrier. And recently the attorney said, well, you had an interview scheduled so many years ago. He doesn't have Bajake. He's been taken off that because they told him that, well, you got Bajake because of COVID. Now there's no longer COVID, so you can't get Bajake. And he has to be in the home care, adult family home. He has no assistance. So these are some of the challenges community members are facing, and we hope that there would be a solution one way or the other.
Thank you for that anecdote, Amon. We are approaching the end of our conversation and grabbing your questions from the chat. But second to last question that we have for our panelists before we jump into our Q&A section, how can policy and broader community address the issues that you all have just mentioned effectively?
I guess we keep going this way. I think in my experience of working 25 years as a social worker, I think we can make a difference. We work with the most vulnerable people that are not in their best circumstances of their lives, right? So I think we can make a difference by, as all these examples that we are hearing now, doing all the basic needs and all of the stories that we just heard. But at the same time, we need to be able to use our platform to educate local, state, or national authorities about what is going on with this. I keep talking immigration. We have a broken immigration system here in this country, and I think it's always good to advocate for better service. We need to be the voice of the people that we're working with. I'm sure many of you or people in the audience, we belong to committees and to different boards and things like that. And I think, if they give you this platform, use it and advocate for that. For example, we have here the Voces de la Frontera, great advocacy group. Join that and really, this new law, the SB1 law that's in Texas, making, really threatening our communities, our undocumented communities. We need to be able to participate in that. We have here here locally in Wisconsin, in the Capitol, many different meetings and about, like driver's licenses or access to education, like you were saying. All of that, I think those of us that are in positions like this, let's use that that platform and then really be the voice of the people that is out there. And I think as somebody mentioned, elections are coming, use some groups and really educate about how important is your vote for those people that can vote. And I read somewhere that, in Wisconsin, I guess there is 27,000 people eligible to become US citizens right now. Why are they not becoming US citizens? What are those barriers? Let's work together and provide that information, and then have more people to hear their, we need to hear the voices of people. I think I work a lot with the faith community, and they are, such an interesting and very active groups where, they can be our voices, right? Sometimes, we speak with accent, and sometimes, using their voices also to transmit the messages and the stuff that we are seeing, and not only the negative thing. The immigrant community, it's the fabric of this community, right? So always, enhance that. Yes, we have a lot of challenges. Yes, we are, going through a lot of stuff. But look, we have, with DACA recipients, we have attorneys, we have, teachers, we have all of that. So we also have to praise our communities. So I'm going to stop there because we're running out of time.
Thanks, Fabiola.
Yeah, I think I would just include that when policies are being written for a community, to have representation from the communities that it's being written about. I think Fabiola touched on that as well. And if we're able to become advocates. But for those communities that don't know how to be an advocate or don't know how to be involved, and if we are a person of influence that are able to invite that person up, or even be a part of that community, or just develop relationships. Why are we writing policies when we don't even know that culture? And if we are writing policies for that culture, most likely it's not going to work because it's not going to fit within the frame or their lens that they're able to navigate within. So a big part of that is to invite, key members from those communities to be a part of the policy, or to just even have them represent or give ideas or language into those policies that are being written.
Yeah, I will quickly jump in here and say that I agree with what both panelists said. And in addition, I believe that good policies go hand in hand with strong community engagement. And so policymakers need to create a space to come down to organizations and people who are working with the population they are thinking of serving or helping, to listen to their challenges, create a space to listen, and also create a space for the people's voice to be heard. Because if they are able to share what they are going through, that would give policymakers the whole picture, or the wholesome picture they need to be able to craft good policies. So that's what I will add to it. They should, sometimes they are at a certain level, they should come down and listen, because effective listening is also good policy making.
Absolutely. Since we have so many questions, I'm just going to jump into some of the questions that are in the chat from folks who have asked, and just so that attendees know, if you have asked a question that's specifically directed at a person, or we'll send that that question to that person, and then try to get an email out to you with those answers, just so that we can answer some of the more general questions that more panelists might be able to respond to. But I have one from Justice Castaneda. He said, "Thank you to the panelists. Humbled to have the opportunity to hear from you. I'm curious about the respective budget allocations that the different systems across the state are putting towards this work. I heard Fabiola say that when she started her budget, it was $30,000. That strikes me as an embarrassingly low, to the point of non-existent number, especially given the magnitude of the demand for the work." So any thoughts about budgets, budget allocations?
Yeah, hi, Justice. Thanks for asking that question. And these are exactly the questions that we need to ask out there, right? So I don't know if you heard that when I started this job, I had zero budget. So that 30,000, and now it's 70,000, and then we're incrementing, hoping that, people, our management, county supervisors, see the work we are doing, and then increase that budget, because you know, talking about the most needed organizations that are doing this great work, their budgets are almost nothing. So I think it is critical for us to keep doing this ask, to keep doing the good work, and to really, especially at election times, right? That's when you get all these phone calls from elected officials, or they wanted to be elected officials. And then, it's our job, our job to really inform them about the services you're providing with the little money that you have. And then if we had, an increased budget, then we will do a better work. We will do and all the successes, everything that we do out there is for the better of our community.
Awesome. Would anybody else like to respond? If not, we can jump to another question.
I could respond a little bit. Our program started, our refugee support services started at the school district in Oshkosh around like 2018, 2019. I wasn't here when that started, but when we started, we have a state funded grant, and that was very little compared to what we receive now. But as we continue to have more families resettle in Oshkosh, we eventually got more funds allocated to us just because we're providing more services. And that was through the state-funded grant. And through those grants, we're able to use that to hire mentoring staff and develop programs and provide services and supplies and just support our students a little bit better.
I'll say that the African Center is an independent nonprofit and one of the thousands of nonprofits in the state and in the county, Dane County. So we have to always struggle through competitive grants making process and grant writing process to even get funding. We were fortunate last year in 2022 actually to get $100,000 grant from the city of Madison, but that was just one time, and that was because of the ARPA funding. And we stretched this money over 15 months so that we'll be able to assist as many people as possible. So we do not get any dedicated funding from anywhere, but we are always on the lookout for collaborations, on the lookout for partnerships that would be able to enhance the work we are doing. Because sometimes you don't have the funding, but someone has the resources, and if you can be able to come together, you'll be able to maybe consolidate some of the resources and assist as many people as possible. So we have limited capacity always as other smaller nonprofits, and we have to chase after the few dollars that's available.
Awesome. And then for our last questions, I'm going to combine two of them. One of our audience members asked, it will be great to hear about the experiences with regional collaboration. So how well are you seeing communities working together? And within your communities, do you have any volunteer opportunities? So either of those questions you can answer as we wrap up.
So I'm going to jump in. When, and just particularly talk about the Immigration Affairs program unit, we started, as I say, really providing services here, there, and now after 5 years almost, we are now going through that direction, because now we have established this office, and we are actually this year we joined the Cities and Counties for Citizenship national organization we are learning so much with them, and then we're going to be, working with them as well. So there are going to be grants from USCIS for the thing that I talk about, a lot of people not becoming a U.S. citizens. So then we're going to join a nonprofit or any of the organizations that are working with them. And so we are in that process. I think at the beginning was like, what you're talking about. Basic needs. Let's do services here. Yes, we do that. And but at the same time, we need to start thinking macro, and then kind of leave our little cell, and then start connecting with these organizations, learn from them, and then make it be stronger. So that's going to make us strong. So it's not easy. I still do direct service. I would never give up that piece, because that's what keeps me grounded. But at the same time, we need to take the strategize. And especially here in Dane County, we have organizations that do that. So hopefully we get there.
Thank you, Fabiola.
My team and I, we connect with local organizations in the Oshkosh, Fox Valley area. So a lot of the services they provide is services that many of our families already have connected to or don't know or don't have access to. So we provide referrals or just connecting them to those organizations. We also work closely with World Relief Wisconsin. Their branches they have an office in Appleton and Oshkosh, but also one in Eau Claire or Chippewa Valley. And so we work closely with them as well, just so we could help, integrate families into the community, provide them with orientation and just to give students and families a smoother transition into the school system and into the community. As for volunteer opportunities, we don't have any volunteer opportunities at the moment. I mean, those are things that I've have processed through just to see what those opportunities would look like and how would it work with serving our student population.
Just quickly looking at the time, I would say that we always welcome volunteers. And so if anyone wants to volunteer and share their skills and knowledge, they're free to email us at info@africancentermadison.org, and we'll be happy to get back to them and have a conversation with them. And also, because we are Dane County based, we try as much as possible to connect with local and community-based organizations and agencies to provide services and do community outreach and engagement. We also try as much as possible to learn from other organizations like ours in other counties and across the state and even across the nation, to know what they are doing and what some of their initiatives are and their innovative practices, even with the limited resources, so that we can also be as innovative and effective in our service delivery.
Thank you, Ama, for rounding us out. I want to thank you, Fabiola and Laura and Ama, so much for your time here. There were so many questions in the chat that I hope that you all might take some time once we share them with you to send some responses, as folks had very specific questions for you, and we'll try to get those sent out to all of our attendees today. And as we wrap up, I will pass it over to Michelle Mackey, our CEO at Kids Forward, and thank you all again to our panelists for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Hola, buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Like many of my colleagues at Kids Forward, I join you carrying the strength and hope of my immigrant family members, my Cuban and Caribbean grandparents. I want to take these last few minutes to thank so much Laura, Fabiola, and Ama for this truly impactful panel, and of course, Cartesia, for your seemingly effortless moderation and input of several anecdotes of your own, and just keeping it very collegial and building the kind of community that we want to see here at Kids Forward. And behind the scenes, there was a lot of work, of course, to pull this together. And it was really based on Liliana and Amanda's vision and leadership. And this is the first of many such panels and webinars that we will be doing. So we encourage everyone to please connect with us, go to our website, get on our email list so that you can stay in touch with us, as well as these panelists about other opportunities. And before we close, we appreciate folks coming out on a Saturday, so we want to honor your time. I just want to highlight a few things that I heard, and mostly that the experience of immigrants is a shared one. And that community and shared understanding of that experience is very, very important. For us as citizens of this state, as residents of this state, and just as humans residing with others. It is so important that we look at our fellow community members and see them for the strength and the dignity and the joy and the hope that they bring to this state. Kids Forward is often known for making economic arguments, and we certainly see the benefits to our workforce, for example, that immigrants bring, but more importantly, we see them as our fellow neighbors, as our family members. And so we encourage all of you to take the call of action that we heard from our panelists today from Fabiola. She said, we can make a difference. We need to be able to use our platforms to educate and advocate for better services. We can carry the voice of the people we work with. If we have a platform, we need to use it to advocate for change and protect our communities, including our undocumented communities. Immigrants are part of the fabric of our community, of our state. And from lore, immigrants must be a part of our policy making. And Amma reminded us that good policies go hand in hand with community engagement where the people's voice is heard. Not just where we show up to do focus groups and we listen and take notes, but where we hear, we understand, and that informs our policies. So again, we encourage you to please go out to our website, to please continue the conversation, and to join us via the email link to hear more about this series and to participate with us. This is an important year in Wisconsin. And so I will also say, educate yourself, vote your conscience, and remember that we are all in this together. We are all a part of this state. And if you can just also take a minute to fill out the survey, we'll know a little bit more about how we can continue the conversation. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend.